Okay, here we go. We're going to code our very first program, Hello World. You might have heard Gabe talk about it, the CEO, owner of Valve, and how excited he was to make Hello World. Hello World has become kind of a rite of passage in the computer science and programming communities. It's tradition. I don't exactly know why, but it's what we do. The first thing you get into a program, I'm sorry, like an IDE, some type of programming environment. You're maybe working with a new programming language. You want to test to see if it works. You do the Hello World program. We're going to do that here. It's going to be a lot less exciting than whenever Gabe first talked about it. We've come a long way since Gabe was learning how to program. But I'll let you kind of see for yourself. A couple of reminders. I highly recommend a second monitor so that you can kind of follow along. You can type as it's showing up on the video. The other big thing that I would like to stress and I would like you to do is actually type stuff out. Don't go find the source code and copy and paste parts, and don't go into previous programs and copy and paste parts. If you type it, it's going to build up a little bit of muscle memory. So without further ado, let's go. Here I am on my desktop, and I'm going to launch IntelliJ. Now, if you walk through the setup video, you might have actually technically already done Hello World to test to see if your program or to see if your environment is working. So when you first launch IntelliJ, it may already be in a program, right? In a project that you were previously working on. So I'm going to show you kind of two ways to get to a new project. The first, which we'll do over and over and over again, is to go to File, New Project. And I'll do that in just a moment. The other is maybe you didn't go through the setup. You're launching IntelliJ actually for the very first time. If that's the case, you're on a different looking screen. And I can actually get to that same screen by going to File, Close Project. So that's going to take me back to this screen. You're probably looking at something similar to this if you have not previously done a project. I'm going to click on New Project here. So that was two different ways to get to the New Project option. The first window that's going to pop up is where we select the SDK. If you followed the IntelliJ setup guide, this should already be selected for you. If it is not, you can likely hit the drop down as long as the JDK is installed. You can go to Add JDK if you don't see one here, and then navigate to it. The default path is going to be C drive, Program Files, Java, and then there's our JDK. Right, you would hit OK, and that would add it to your drop-down list. You now see I'm up to 3 versions of the exact same thing. In theory, once you select the JDK, you never have to do that again. If you were unable to find the JDK from that, that's because you haven't installed it. You need to go look at the IntelliJ plus Java JDK setup video and make sure you get the JDK installed. Here I have a JDK selected, so I'm going to hit Next. I'm going to hit Next to go right past this screen. And here we're going to name our project. Now, you can navigate to a different folder if you would like. It doesn't really matter to me as long as you continuously save stuff into like the same main folder. One idea that you could probably roll with is maybe making a new subfolder here, even within the Idea Projects folder that IntelliJ has created. What am I saying? Let's make a new folder. There's this new folder icon that I'm going to click on. It's going to ask me, what do I want to name it? And maybe we name it something like AP Computer Science Principles. If you're ultra lazy, which most programmers are, maybe this is just CSP. Okay, so I have this AP Computer Science Principles folder. I'm going to ultimately put everything in there. Now there's going to be a ton of subfolders, right? This has created a subfolder, but I want my actual project to be Hello World. For us right now, these subfolders are not a big deal because we're only writing programs with like one file in them. But in the future, you'll start coming up with programs, with projects that have multiple files. And so having the subfolder is super important. So not only is my project name Hello World, well, I've added the Hello World subfolder within the AP Computer Science Principles here. That'll help me keep my code nice and organized. The only reason why I had to type this out You might have watched the IntelliJ setup guide video where IntelliJ kind of did this for you. The only reason why I typed it out is because I changed project locations. I tacked on this folder. In theory, once this folder is created, all the future projects, this will be typed out for me via IntelliJ. Once you have the subfolder and the project named, you're ready to go. So we'll hit finish. It's going to tell me this does not exist. Do I want to create it? You might also, if you followed the IntelliJ Java JDK setup video, already have this thing in existence, and you can click override. So here we are in IntelliJ. It's possible that this project pane, this package explorer, is not visible to you. If it is not, you can double click here where it says Hello World, and that'll pop it out. Okay. I'm then going to expand this project folder, and we see the SRC. That SRC is short for source. We want to put our .java, our source code, in this folder. I'm going to right click on this folder, do a new Java class. I'm going to call this one Hello World. In this case, the name of my class matches my project. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. As I just said a few moments ago, we can actually have multiple source files within the same project. So you should be able to make that connection that these don't necessarily have to line up. But let's take a look at what we have here. Right, this auto-generated some stuff. This line, this is called our class header. Right? I'm going to actually put a comment here. We'll talk more about what comments are later. This is our class header. We have the word public, we have the word class, and then we see Hello World. This is like we're titling this file, if you will. Notice that the word public and the word class are both orange, whereas Hello World is kind of a grayish color at the moment. These words that are orange, those are known as reserved words. We'll talk more about those later. But this is effectively the name of my file. And then we see these two braces. Okay, I'm going to be very specific with my terminology as we go. This is a brace. Okay, on my keyboard, it is shift bracket. What's a bracket? These square boys, right? This little squiggly boy and this little squiggly boy, that's a brace. More appropriately, this is an opening brace. This is a closing brace. These are brackets. This is an opening bracket. This is a closed bracket. And the last set that we'll ever probably use is a parenthesis. We have an opening parenthesis. We have a closing parenthesis. As you can see right now, IntelliJ is mad at me. That's what these little red squigglies mean. This is not proper syntax. We'll talk about what that means. But effectively, I'm putting characters in a spot in my file that don't belong there. Let's go back. So we have our class header, public, class, hello world. We have what's known as a body, as denoted by this opening brace and this closing brace. So important statements are going to appear in the body, that is between this opening brace and this closing brace. And the statement that we're going to do, I'm inside the body, I am tabbed over. I'm going to type out, and I want you to type it with me, public, static, void, main. We have an open parenthesis, string with a capital S, opening bracket, and notice IntelliJ has auto-included the closing bracket for both my brackets as well as my parentheses. Not quite done, but so far we have public, static, void, main, open parenthesis, string with a capital S, open bracket, close bracket, and inside of the parentheses, I'm going to type out args, ARGS. That is short for arguments. Okay, public, static, void, main, string, args. This is known as the main method header. The name main comes from here. Right? We're effectively defining a section of code, and the label, what it's called, is main. This one is very common. The sooner you memorize this, the better off you'll be. Notice we got some reserved words going here, right? This orange text, recall, it's reserved words. Public static void. We'll talk about what those mean a little bit later. This part's a little bit more complicated. We'll definitely talk about that much later. But this is a header. In the same way that I have a class header, I have a method header. In the same way that we have a class body as defined by these braces, we're going to have a method body. Just like my brackets and my parentheses, IntelliJ auto-completed the closing brace for me. Right? So I have this class body, and inside of the class body is a main method. That main method has a head. It also has a body. We're actually going to plug in a statement inside of our main method. Notice I've tabbed over one more time to show that what I'm about to type is inside of the main method body. And what we're typing here, follow along with me, is system with a capital S dot or period out dot print ln, then some parentheses. This is an L. Sometimes people get confused. Is that an I? Is the number 1 in different fonts? They almost look identical, but we have system dot out dot print ln. That ln is a short abbreviation for line, and then we have our parentheses. This is known as a system.out.println, a print command, an output statement. You may hear me refer to it as an SOP and other terms later. But most often I'm going to call it an SOP. We're going to use this system.out.println command to print something. Now the word print gets lost on some students right away because their mind goes to a printer, like it's printing out a piece of paper. Are we about to tell the printer to do something? What we're actually doing is going to display something to the console. It's going to be a window that shows up whenever we run our program at the bottom of our IntelliJ, and we're going to display something in the console. In this case, the namesake of the program, here I have double quotes, and what we're going to print is literally hello, comma, world. So in quoted text, I have hello world. I'm saying literally display to the console, literally output hello world. Notice I have a squiggly here. IntelliJ is still mad. And if you actually hover over it, it says semicolon expected. So all statements in Java end with a semicolon. That's how the computer knows when you're effectively done with that statement. Because as we're going to see, if I were to copy and paste this, I could put stuff here. That doesn't look pretty to me as a programmer, but for the computer, they don't care. As long as those semicolons are there, it knows where one command or statement stops and a new one begins, with the spacing being irrelevant. Get rid of those. Here's my program. This is actually complete. And so whenever Gabe was talking about hello world, this is what he was talking about excited him the most. I'm going to run my program for the very first time, which means I'm going to right click in free space and tell it to run. Notice there is a short key that we could use. I'm probably almost always going to click this because it seems easier than Control-Shift F10. So I'm going to tell my program to run. We're going to see a window pop up at the bottom. That's the console or the output that I was talking about. And here we ran our program using Java, and it printed hello world. Literally what we typed. That's it. That's what Gabe was excited about.